It's been too long. We have not talked about these delightful little dinosaurs for a while. So I thought I'd make a quick update video today just to get the ball rolling again, and then come back to it in more detail, maybe solicit from folks some questions or some topics that they want to see in more detail. But this will be a chicken TV, Woodchip TV video. These sweet friends got a nice upgrade yesterday and the day before in the form of a huge pile of wood chips, which I took some video shots as we moved them into position here. And they've got a really nice setup here to have much more nutrient and moisture absorbed with these wood chips. I think there's enough now to get us to the fall, certainly soundly to leaf bag season in the later fall. Don't mind the mess of little bits here and there. You can see a huge cache in the back here. This is the start of our summer pipeline for compost. And the other day this was completely mucky and gooey, had absolutely deficient amounts of carbon, and now it is overloaded, overflowing. In fact, we made some dividers here, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We got some more compost we need to harvest, but we're going to let them work through the sprouts first. I'm trying to maintain these in a really nice healthy way so that they have that same amount of huge population of worms and sprouts and little bits of material to harvest out from the compost. But basically every hay fork full in this compost area has a whole bunch of sprouts and a whole bunch of worms. That's been really lovely to evolve and deepen that system. And partly that's been about not turning it too much. We're learning that if you can let areas rest, you get a lot more worm life. So leveraging these rings right here is a nice way to fill with unfinished compost with lots of worms and be a boundary between one area of compost and another. And the worms can inoculate in both directions and increase. Later on, we can dig them out, open up the rings, and the hens can have additional food. I'll share here a video montage of the work we did in getting a bunch of wood chips into this area and some of the thought processes there. Thank you so much, Chelsea, for the help. And of course, Juan is always with us, working together to improve our chicken systems and everywhere else. So it's really lovely to be developing more community around supporting these hens and be able to share the eggs and the bounty. This is what the chicken yard looked like before we began. And it's pretty grimy. A lot of excess water right by the gate, which I'll talk about in a moment, what the issue was and how we resolved it. But all that excess water, all that nutrient, this just made for some very gooey, rich, but not very pleasant material, impossible with the wheelbarrow. Our good friend Keith, who's an amazing arborist, knows that I'm always looking for wood chips. We trade, and so he brought a full truckload. This is about 16 yards. It's lovely when you have a wood chip generating person who's into trading plants, but also knows what's going on. He's like, it's a mix of box elder and black locust with a lot of ramial wood. You'll love it. Thanks, Keith. It's great to have folks like you in this world. Ample pile, my gosh, a lot to work with, but a lot of value for our system. So time to begin. Juan started with a little bit of handwork, bringing in some dried chips to lay down on the wettest parts. This is going to allow us to come in with a little bit less intensity over the muddy areas. We'll go deeper and resolve better, but we need a walkway first. And the chickens get immediately to work, which is always wonderful. They will pick apart the compost. They'll spread it out in a nice way. So we just can dump it a little bit. In the walkways, we don't want to go super deep because there's lots of sprouts in there, but enough for the hens to spread out and enjoy. Here, Juan is harvesting the last of some finished compost, so we don't bury that in raw wood chips. We want to have that separated. And this is our incoming chicken compost run. On the left there is finished, quote-unquote, compost. The stuff in the back is absolute goo, nasty kind of stuff. It needs so much carbon. We took some empty compost rings to make a much taller divider between the two areas, and started adding some of that gooey compost, which is aromatic to be sure, but also beautifully loaded with red wigglers. It's a great inoculation in there. So here Juan is loading in tons of this material, and I'm checking out just how inoculated it is. Those worms will be able to move in both directions into the finished compost and into the wood chips later. And the hens at every single step of the process are very glad to be involved. It's a win for everyone. Walkway is evolving, and now we've got the finished compost from this little area in boxes, doubling as a container for chips. We need to add some chips in the winter run for sure too. They get the greenest stuff in there so the hens can peck at it and enjoy. First load's coming into the summer run. Juan is finishing off a couple of these rings. We're not going to move all the compost, that's fine, we're just trying to move some. Making some headway on the wood chip pile. This is the next day, getting ready here. We went through and dug out and buried a scrap metal pipe that we found in a dumpster, and that routes our sump pump and overflow from rainwater downslope. That'll resolve the wetness by the gate, at least for now. Here, Chelsea and Juan are working together as a really wonderful team. A snow shovel and fork work really, really nicely. I talked about this in another video, that particular tool. Poly 5-tine materials moving fork. Just in the amount of time it took me to say that, the two of them on an asphalt driveway were able to harvest a nearly full wheelbarrow load of wood chips. Pathway's evolving really quickly now, and it's beautiful to see how much the hens do the work of spreading it out. They really enjoy that, so don't take it away from them. Pile it up, let them kick it apart. And they'll spread out the stuff in the winter run and enjoy the heat coming off of that for now. Probably about 20 wheelbarrows in at this point with wood chips in the back. Those compost rings doing a lot of work in holding back an avalanche of wood chips. The hens, whether it's raw wood chip or compost or anywhere in between, love to work on it. And you can see a really nice differentiation between the two types. Here they're checking out and doing some inspection, and Chelsea's coming through with one of the last wheelbarrow loads. I think in total we got about 45 wheelbarrow loads in here, and that ought to be enough to get us going for a while. I used some of the locust dividers to separate the finished quote-unquote compost from the raw wood chips. The hens can access every last worm and sprout that sprouts in between there, and that'll keep it separated. Not too bad for a few hours of work, and all that lumpiness will be good and smooth after about a day from the hens. We had a little bit left over that didn't fit in the yard, so we found some other areas in the backyard and other places. There's always some spots to put down wood chips, especially in a wet year. A couple of hours with 3 people and the right kind of tools and approach, and the pile is just about done. Thanks, Chelsea. Thank you, Juan. Let me know down in the comments what aspects of our chicken system you'd like to see a deeper dive. It's been a little while since I've focused on this area. It feels like we're getting back on track with it, a little bit more attention being paid. And so is there interest in certain aspects or areas or questions you have or challenges you're having in developing your own simple chicken composting system? Let me know in the comments, and we'll keep evolving the system and sharing as it goes. For now, we'll let the hens have their early morning of sprouts and worms and chips.